Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of LunarCrush Live. John, how are you this morning?
I am good, Joe. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm now jealous of your cool background that you have that you keep updating, and I have nothing, and it's like I'm wearing all black all the time.
Do you have any idea where there's a large number 4 back there?
I do not.
Well, everyone will see soon.
Okay, I was hoping you would say it.
Nope.
All right, everyone. Today we've got Daniel Keller, Chief Strategy Officer at Flux, coming on. We're going to be really excited to talk through what they've got going on. I feel like cloud and a little bit of identity is like the last missing piece for like solving everything in Web3. So I'm excited to hear what they've been working on and where they're at right now. I saw their site last night. It's super cool. We'll be discussing Flux. We've got community strategies. We're always here talking about growth and what they're working on. We'll get some questions. I'll let him talk a little bit about what they want to do for a giveaway. And just as a reminder, always our disclaimer, we do not take payment for our live streams. We bring on fun, cool, exciting people that have dedicated their careers and lives to crypto. Make sure you get in there, ask those questions, and slam that subscribe button. We got to come up with a new salam button, but love it. All right, man. Without further ado, Daniel.
Guys, thanks for having me on. The infamous Joe and John. Hey, I even got the purple pulled out, LunarCrush purple, just for this event. You can see it back here. I mean,
I love it. I love it.
Pulled out all the stops, guys.
Appreciate that, man. Nice. So we always like to start with where are you in the world? What's it like there?
I live in the States in Pennsylvania. It is cold as hell and kind of desolate right now, but hopefully spring is coming soon. So let's get it together.
What did the groundhog see its shadow?
Yes, it did, as a matter of fact. So okay. We're thinking more winter, but who knows?
Well, they've got California here yesterday, and I don't know if it's like just near my house, but we missed a lot of it. But people saw hail and snow and thunder. We don't get that out here. It was like the
90s.
Electricity
it was 90s a few days ago.
Yeah, going out over here.
Here in PA, we call that Tuesday.
Yes, exactly.
All in one day. The weather just goes. It's crazy. Hey guys,
we just had the warmest Super Bowl ever. I mean, 72 hours ago?
I saw that. Amazing. Crazy.
I don't know if you noticed the Rams won. So just throwing that out there.
Yep, they did win. Yep.
Cool.
Guys, I really appreciate you having me on today. I figured I'd give you a little introduction if that's okay, and then I'll mention what we're going to be giving away today as well. So I'm Daniel Keller. I'm Chief Strategy Officer for Flux and for Zelcore. Flux is our decentralized computational network. The easiest way to describe it, if there's people watching who've never heard of it before, we are the AWS of blockchain. Blockchain as a service. We run a decentralized computational network that consists of about 2,800 plus nodes all across the world. They're hosted by individuals that are actually running the infrastructure themselves. Unlike other individuals who are going into the Web3 phase, we were Web3 before Web3 was cool. and I'm also the CSO for Zelcore, which is our multi-asset platform.
Cool. And we could just dive right into it a little bit. I mean, with when you're saying they're hosting their own infrastructure, I mean, are we talking about individuals? Are we talking about small organizations? And it's because there's one thing to be decentralized, and then there's another thing to be censor resistant, right? And it's kind of how does that? Maybe talk just a little bit more about exactly how some of these this infrastructure is stood up and who's running it.
I think the bigger point is if you're truly decentralized, you're censorship resistant. That's the key. So we're a little bit different than anyone else because we actually, if you're in business today and you want to stand up an infrastructure, you go to AWS, you spec out whatever it is that you want to run on AWS, you pay AWS to run that infrastructure, which is co-located in, they call it the cloud, but it's really a few different locations, let's say in the States. The way that Flux works is we took AWS completely out of the equation, and we went directly to peer-to-peer in a decentralized manner to individuals who had the bare metal and or VPS infrastructure, and we have them host the actual nodes themselves. So when you deploy something on Flux OS, you're actually going in, you're deploying it on Flux. It will randomly spawn that application, that website, that Oracle, whatever it is that you want to run on Flux, to a random 5 to 10 nodes all across the world. The nice thing about it is it's completely load balanced. So if one node drops, another node will immediately spawn after that. So you mentioned, and when we were chatting a little bit before the live stream about the infrastructure is the power play. Infrastructure has always been the power play, right? That we are the guys that sell the pickaxes and the shovels and the gold pans to the gold rush. It's not sexy, it's not going to blow your mind, but what it is going to do is it's going to create this new Web3 model that's out there, and it's right at the heart of our community and the individuals running the infrastructure.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what everyone wants to invest in. I feel is layer one and infrastructure. At least a lot of the smart people, and so, I mean, maybe just even like talk about it a little bit further, because it's like, I remember when cloud started and it was like everything's going to be solved, right? It's like instantly scalable, right? Like,
Yeah.
you get a lot of these new users instantly scalable. I mean, we just went through this a couple months ago, going from, a couple, million page views a month to 2 billion page views a month, right? And it's like instantly everything is just destroyed and crashes, and like everyone's on call 24/7. It's like, if it's not your, like, it's like the email system goes down because you didn't have that scaled automatically to do 5 million emails in a day versus 500,000. It's like there's something that always breaks, right? And so it's like, how, like, I guess explain a little bit more about like Amazon. You're saying maybe 5 or 10 nodes for you guys, like it's on 5 or 10, but can scale to more. But if like there's a DApp on there that suddenly goes from 5 million users to 50 million users, like, are you guys handling that load as well?
Yep. Yeah. And I'll use a use case, which is one of our major, partners that we work with is KDA. KDA uses Flux, and we run over 1,000 nodes to enable their node infrastructure for them to remain completely decentralized. They came to us with a problem, and the problem was there wasn't enough nodes running, and we said, hey, we can deploy a few hundred nodes that'll help with decentralization. It'll help with your uptime. We'll act as a wetlands if you have problems with the infrastructure. We can absorb some of those pieces, and we went from 10 KDA nodes to over 1,000 KDA nodes in the course of about 3 days. So I mean, it really honestly is truly scalable. And we believe that individuals should have the infrastructure to scale decentralized. Everything that was built in what I call legacy Web 2 is going to have to be rebuilt in Web 3. What better way to do that than actually kind of go by the Bitcoin kind of lead and be a decentralized platform? So in your case, when you guys should run on Flux, like, let's talk. I mean, you guys can Dockerize your applications. We can help back you up. I am a firm believer. I think you hit the nail on the head that I don't think that, when I first heard the cloud, I've been in IT for 25 plus years, and I'm like, what the hell's a cloud? And where it has to be a real thing, right? We know it's a real thing. And there was people that were hesitant about moving over to the cloud, even in this AWS, Microsoft Azure, DigitalOcean world. They still get little skittish about the cloud. Well, Web3 kind of, the way that we're pushing Web3 and moving forward with Web3 is it's kind of that natural iteration. They're going to feel comfortable more with Web3 because they've already made a transition to Web 2. So, I compare it to, landline phones. So the adoption of landline phones, especially in third world countries, was very, very, it was like this. And then all of a sudden, here comes cell phones, and it's like this. Now, I compare the same thing with, this infrastructure as we're here. We've already made it with the cloud, and I think that Web3 is just that natural next progression.
Yeah, or go ahead, John.
I'm wondering, are we there today? I mean, what are the remaining building blocks that need to be put into place to transition these companies from Web 2 to Web 3? Is it is it a technical issue or is it more of a strategic and more of a like a mental issue?
I think it's an adoption issue. I think we are there. I mean, it's iterative technology. I mean, really, blockchain as a whole is iterative technology. We know that this isn't the final baked. I mean, you go back a year ago and you think of what DeFi was back then, or fintech, or whatever the buzzword of the day was.
Right.
It doesn't look the same today as it did a month ago. A month ago we had a couple hundred apps running on Flux. Now we have over 5,000. So it's one of those things where 24/7, 365. I think the adoption cycle moves into a parabolic phase, and you'll just see people naturally gravitating toward a decentralized platform. The other big thing that's really helped to push this Web3 mantra is the decentralized autonomous networks. So, I want to see a world where, Uber runs on Flux, as a decentralized platform that has a governance model that's a DAO that's governed by the people that are participating with the company. That can happen, and it can happen today.
It's interesting because when I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, I remember reading that Uber was considering adding crypto payments. And so it's interesting. You think of their own mental and strategic evolution. They're like, yeah, we might accept payments.
Yeah, it's like 2013.
And you're talking about running Uber as a DAO.
Yeah.
And it's like a progression towards that maybe someday, or it's a different platform entirely, and goodbye Uber. Who knows?
Yeah, I think we disrupted the disruptors. I think that's what it is we, the disruptors were the individuals that came in and started doing this. Airbnb became the largest hotel chain. Uber became, took the place of our taxi cabs. So the disruptors came in and they were like, hey, we're going to flip this upside down. But they're still gatekeepers. They're still middlemen. And it's not peer-to-peer, truly peer-to-peer. So I think what we're doing, especially with Web3 and what the whole idea around Web3 is we're here to disrupt the disruptors. We know you're comfortable taking a cut of every single driver that's doing their thing, but how about if those drivers could have an autonomous organization where they could vote on what that is, and it's possible. I mean, Flux is currently governed by an XDAO, so we put our XDAO in place 6-7 months ago. The majority of the major changes to the platform or anything to do with the project will be ran by our node operators who are able to vote on the project. You can check us out on our dashboard and see the XDAO in place, and it works great. Good stuff gets through, bad stuff doesn't. So it's just, and I think you could see that on a much grander scale.
Yeah, I think we talked about Uber a lot on here. It's like the perfect organization to actually go do that. Like founders are gone, like massive, network of. They created both sides of the demand on the market, with the drivers and the riders and everything. It's like the perfect thing to do that. I will say though, like with that decision making with something like Uber, like they're just, we'll take crypto payments, where it's like if you have, especially with Web2, it's like Airbnb, and you think about some of these companies where they're still kind of founder led. It's like, from a lot of the, investors and VCs that I've talked to, they're getting phone calls from these Web2 founders finally saying like, I missed it, dude. I'm getting it now. Like I understand like what crypto is doing, how it's changing. And I feel like those are the organizations that are going to make the switch to something like Flux, like fast. Cause they're going to say, holy shit, like, how do I change where like, I don't know what was the app like Parler that was taken down or whatnot?
Yeah,
like,
Parler. Yeah.
Well, if like, and I'm not, don't care, like political, whatever aside, it's like, hey, like if it's Cloudflare can take you down, if Cloudflare can't take you down, or if like the app stores don't take you down, then Cloudflare can, then AWS can take you down. Like someone can take you, someone along the chain is going to take you down. It's like, oh, your email service doesn't work anymore. Oh, this doesn't work. How many different plugins do you have? And so it's just a super interesting place to think about, like some of these older companies, and we talk about all the time, kind of coming to crypto versus like new things being built. And it's like, there's going to be a couple specific like chess pieces that get knocked down eventually, and it's going to open this whole thing wide open.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're seeing it now. I mean, I think you're already seeing the legacy Web2 world scrambling to figure out exactly the business disruption that's going to come from Web3. Because like I said, everything that is in Web2 world has to be ported to Web3. It isn't like that and it's there. There's a lot of work. So a player who was so inclined could come in and create a competitor on Web3, have a first mover advantage to an Airbnb or an Uber or a Twitter or whatever. And as a matter of fact, we have multiple companies that are working on just those things, and they'll be the very first ones to launch on Web3. That's a first mover advantage. This I'm not saying this is a reset, because I believe in, it's going to be a hybrid symbiotic world for a very long time. Web 2 and Web 3 are going to work hand in hand. As a matter of fact, Flux even acknowledges that. We know we're not going to get all those folks that were the cloud naysayers back 15 years, 10 years ago. They're not going to jump right on board right away. They're going to want to have some foot in the Web 2 world while there's some foot in the Web 3 world. And that's where Flux really shines, is because we acknowledge that. And, we want this to be an iterative technology. We want people to get comfortable by deploying their applications on Flux in tandem, load balanced with Web 2. And if you do that together, then I think you can naturally kind of scale into things.
I'd like to ask, why now? Why Web3 now? What are the key drivers of this? Decentralization, ownership of data. Like, why did this not happen 2-3 years ago? Why now?
Well, I think the big thing is you have to really look at the progression and really, Web 1, which was read, Web 2, which is read write, and Web 3, which is read write own. And I think the natural progression was the technology didn't exist. The fundamental underpinnings of creating a Web 2 that looked like Web 3, it didn't exist. And as a matter of fact, it only exists really truly with a couple projects that are really looking at, making it truly decentralized. And I think the big push for us was, Flux is 4 years old. We're not new we were Zcash before we were Flux. But very early on, we identified opportunities where we were going to need a decentralized platform. And I've been saying it for years. You're going to see a major deplatforming. You're already seeing it. We had a sitting president that was removed from Twitter. We had, politics aside, whether you like Joe Rogan or you hate Joe Rogan, he should be able to have the right to speak freely. And, you saw, I can't remember the company that came in. They wanted to give him $100 million to move Rumble. Rumble wanted to move him over. Joe Rogan could launch that today on Flux. Literally, he could run. We run streaming apps. We run, you name it. But there's going to be a significant moment where people, and we could have just saw it yesterday with what Canada did and starting to lock the. This is terrifying stuff. And I don't care what your politics are, right, left, in the middle. You should be completely indifferent to any of this, because this is going to be a serious challenge for us moving forward. And so the answer to your question is this: we knew 4 years ago, decentralized compute networks. Web3 wasn't the verbiage back then. Now it is, right? That's what they use the term to kind of ease people into it. But the reality of it is it's decentralized compute. And we knew that there were going to be events that are eventually people are going to look around and there has to be a solution. There has to be a way that we can do something and not worry about being deplatformed or having our just shut down, or my livelihood. I talked with somebody the other day who had a business, and they came in and just shut the whole thing down because they didn't like the way it was being ran. And that a large business. We're not talking like little players here. We're talking a big deal. And they had to move from AWS to another provider because of what, AWS just didn't like it. So that's a big challenge. The demand is here now today. And I think that's what we're going to have to help facilitate.
It's interesting. The whole world is wrestling with this censorship issue. It's interesting. You mentioned Canada, and I'm sure you watched that video of
Yes.
I don't even know what her title was. She's like the head of their Fed or something.
Yeah, their Fed. It's their version of the Fed. Yes.
And one thing that she said that just killed me was that if your account is frozen by a banker has that unilateral decision to do so, and you have no legal recourse against it.
No recourse. It's the best. It's the best damn advertisement ever for crypto. Seriously, who would have ever thought we were in a time that we'd see something like this? We knew they were going to come for us eventually in And by the way, I like I'm not against regulation. I don't say I like it, but I think it's a necessary evil. But if anyone knows crypto or blockchain, they're sitting there listening to that clip, and they're like, "How the hell do you stop it?" There is no way that you're going to stop this. You can say you're going to stop it. You can make it hard for people, but if you attack the centralized exchange, everybody goes to a DEX model.
Yep.
The cat is out of the bag. So they better change and I'm not just talking the government, I'm talking the technology stack overall. You better reevaluate your business case. You better reevaluate how you are collecting taxes if you're a government, and what is a transaction, how these things look. If you're a Web2 based business, how does this new disruptive technology come in and attack my business model? Because we're coming after you, AWS. We're going to take a percentage of your business. So you better figure out how you're going to work with that and how you can kind of meld that in. Otherwise, people will run away with it. We saw it in the .com boom. It was basically the same thing. People got that first mover advantage. They got out ahead, and they just kept blazing the trail.
And that relates to what's on your shirt, doesn't it?
Yes, my "Don't Be Evil Again," which we're giving 3 of these away. You guys can pick today who we give these away to. But Amit Patel, who was at the time when they coined the phrase, the CEO of Gmail, and they felt that Google felt that what their competitors was doing was evil. They were manipulating data. They were manipulating their users. So they coined the phrase "Don't be evil," and it stayed on their website for a very long time. And I mean, I grew up in the Google world. "Don't be evil" was a staple. I mean, you guys might remember it too. You opened up your search engine, and right underneath there was "Don't be evil." So this is kind of a dig at Google, because we say at Flux, "Don't be evil again. Make it cool again. Let's get it into the hands of the people." I mean, some would argue Google is one of the biggest, what's the word I want to use? Manipulators of our data. And it's a real concern, and people should be concerned about it. Not only are they working with all of our data, where we eat, where we sleep, where we drive to, where we go, they're now in electronic medical records. So they're already working with large healthcare organizations. They will know every single thing about you, and you have no recourse, and they will monetize it, and they will make sure that their targeted ad campaigns are directly towards you. You get nothing in return. Web3 changes that paradigm. The shift comes because people are now in control of their own information. One of the projects we have, Paradigm, which is the whole reason why Flux was really born, was electronic medical records and an opt-in fashion on the blockchain. I want to be able to have my electronic medical records. I want to take them with me and have it portable. I had a severe illness, spent 7 years super sick, and I had a stack of labs that I had to carry around to each doctor with me. And I mean, when I tell you that was that thick, I'm not kidding you.
I believe it.
Well,
And that kind of lit a fire under all of us to figure out a way. There has to be a better way that we don't have to rely on people for this. We should be able to do it ourselves. So,
yeah, even like medical records, you're talking about, like with COVID, it's like, even you go to like a game or something, and they're like, "Show me a picture of your, of this on your phone." Right. That's it. That is to the fullest extent that they were protected against stuff. It's like the medical record, or just like one of the copies of like the screen caps that I took from like before, and like where it's at. It's like the least official possible thing that is out there. And it's like, that's how we dealt with that.
Yep.
You
Well,
know?
I think COVID sped up the Web3 world quite a bit, because we saw the glaring deficiencies very quickly. Again, politics aside, the ability to disseminate information and not have it filtered. I want to be my own steward of my knowledge, right? So I want to go out and I want to research multiple things. I want to see every side of it, and then I make my own educated decisions once I've kind of consumed all the medias. If there's a break in that, and they're steering it in one direction or the other direction, I can't make an educated decision on my what's happening. And we saw this, what used to be looked at as taboo, or the science is settled on this is what it is. It's not that. And today, a year later, it looks completely different than it did last year. So I think we have to be super careful with that. And I'm not saying everything out there in the world is factual. There's a lot of, manufactured stuff out there. But when your largest players in the space, your Googles, your Facebooks, your Twitters, start to take matters into their own hand of what's right and wrong, that becomes a super big problem for me.
Yep, and everyone's doing it. And I mean, even the application layer, though, it's like TikTok just came out with like a new updated guidelines, and it was pretty in depth. And they basically came out and said, in one way or another, they're reading everything on there, which there are some protection layers that they're trying to put in place of people trying to do actual bad things. They're trying to kind of predict what they're saying so that those people they can catch doing things. But it's like, who is like the person that decides at the end of the day what is a good thing and what is a bad thing?
That's right.
And how do you do that at scale? And how do you not know if someone's being facetious or if someone's kidding or joking or like, whatever it may be? It's like, who's like the judge and jury on that from that level? And then you say, well, hey, what if TikTok was built on Flux, right? And what if it's like you're decentralizing their software, but the application layer, though, there's still controls that need to be put in place. And so at the end of the day, it's almost like, hey, if you're not logged in through like some sort of Web3 login, like you don't have the data. They have the data. It's just more decentralized, right?
Yeah, it's super terrifying, actually. That exact those terms of service were, they put chills up my back. And, the majority of people will click on that and they'll just go to the next thing. They'll just give up their data freely. I think people are becoming more educated to exactly what their data is doing. I mean, my wife, for instance, says to me one day, we were talking about something, a drying rack for the, for the dishes, and she's like, I need to get another drying rack for the dishes. And, I'll pick it up sometime this week. And she goes over to her phone and she picks her phone up, and what's the number one ad that pops up? Drying rack for dishes. And she's like, she looks at me and she's like, I didn't even search the internet for this. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Right. So they're not supposed to be listening to you. And I'm not conspiracy. I don't have my tinfoil hat on. It is odd, though, because they know the algorithms are so deep that they really do know the ins and outs of what you're thinking. And they can guide you one way or the other. That's the thing is, who does make those decisions? This is an uncomfortable conversation that has to be had. And that is this: we have always lived in a world where there was some big brother that was making sure what we came across was either curtailed and or censored. This is the very first time that the technology exists to step outside of those boundaries. And it's going to take a global conversation about how and why, and we traverse this ourselves. I think you could see a massive autonomous organization where the individuals that participate in the networks are the ones that actually give input to what the guidelines are. We don't want to see nasty stuff out there. There's nasty stuff. We know it's out there. And the XDAO, the decentralized government model, is going to have to curtail that. But if you got a show that I don't like to listen to because it's differing from my opinion, have at it. Have at it. I listen to everything, and I think it should be open. I think we should be open as a society to have that conversation, because whether you like it or not, much like Bitcoin, you're going to have the conversation, and you can either do it willingly and be participatory, or you can do it. You can be a bystander and you can let it happen around you, because it's happening right now.
Yep. So it's super interesting because I think some of this has led to this cancel culture that we're surrounded by, and I find that the Joe Rogan one is really fascinating. And I'm going to go back and say I think he gave the best apology and explanation that I've ever heard anyone give.
Yeah.
And if you go back and watch what he did about a week ago, it's really interesting, like what he was trying to do. And I sit here and I laugh today because Neil Young is back on Spotify.
Yeah, that guy.
That doesn't tell you.
I had to think about who Neil Young was for a while. I was like, wait a minute, am I missing out on something here?
Yeah. But it's just kind of interesting. I mean, where do you see? I mean, here we are in this Web 2 to Web 3 transition. Like, how do you see these more traditional entities playing into Web 3? Is there like Is there like an innovation arm of the company that's testing something? Are they
Yes.
putting certain types of assets on a blockchain? Like, where do you see them playing, and how do you see that evolving?
Well, I think you're going to see exactly what we're seeing with Flux right now, and that is our legacy partners who are reaching out to us because they want to understand the platform. They understand that it's going to shift, and we have one large company that we're working with right now. An announcement will come out here in a few weeks about, but they understand there's value, and they have to understand how they fit into the mold. So part of it is, if you have a large successful business, your first initiative is to protect that model. And to protect that model, you have to step outside of your comfort zone and be more proactive rather than reactive. Because if you're reactive, you're playing from behind. And you can't be in this space, you cannot be playing from behind. You guys know crypto 24/7, 365. A day in the crypto world is like a month in the conventional world because we move quick. So I think that they've already started to acknowledge that. I mean, Flux was accepted into the NVIDIA Inception program. We're the very first blockchain-based project to be added to the Inception program. It's about 7,000 companies all around the world that now have access for us to be able to talk to and develop conversations around what Web3 looks like. A lot of people question. They say, "Well, why did you why are you going through NVIDIA?" They have what we need, and we are the next logical iteration. So why fight them? Because they're already doing something very successful. We're not going to take the business model of NVIDIA and go out and deploy it on Flux. But what we can do is take the value add, the knowledge that they have behind their products, especially their Jetsons, AI, and edge compute, and we can deploy that onto the Flux network. So I think you're going to see a lot of businesses really start to engage that. Ask the questions like, what is it? How's it work? I mean, I can't tell you the name of the company, but I sat down with a very large VPS provider, and we spent about 2 hours in a conversation, and it was there. I was the only one that was wearing a sweatshirt. Everybody else had suits on. So that tells you like the caliber of what the conversation was. And I was like this weird anomaly that just comes in, and I'm going to explain to them exactly why we're going to disrupt their business model. And at the end of the conversation, they said, "We want to work with you."
Yeah.
So that's if you are able to convey why the value prop of why this is going to be successful, I think the Web2 folks just file in one after another.
Yeah. A year ago to like even 6 months ago, maybe you're not even in that room though, or that Zoom or whatever
I'm not.
may have been, but
Nope.
you're not, those conversations aren't there, but now their ears are perked and they're saying, okay, this is happening. We need to really kind of dig in. And there's that approach, right, of kind of going and knocking down like a couple of big chess pieces. But then there's the approach that you see like, AWS has and Google Cloud and, Azure has, which is like go into all these like accelerator programs and offer $250,000 in free credits.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, that's where, and then you lock in the next like 50 unicorns over the next 10 years or whatever it may be. And like, that's where a lot of that has kind of happened. Are you guys looking at that approach as well of, hey, let's have like the best developer docs possible. How do we deploy to some of these startups? Cause it's like, there's a mentality of a super early stage startup, which like, hey, that's a little bit more of a long tail play, but that's actually where like, I think a lot of the long-term value is.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple points there that I want to touch base on. So essentially, the way that Flux was designed is, Flux OS is kind of based on the Linux distribution model. So I told you all about deploying on Flux, but what I didn't tell you guys is if I went there today to deploy my DApp, my Oracle, my website, my whatever it is that I want to deploy on Flux, it costs me $0. Right now, that same infrastructure will cost you about $138 on AWS. How can we do that? That sounds insane. Well, the Linux distribution model allows people to be able to develop on the technology on top of the platform for free. So you have Linux, and then on top of Linux, you have Red Hat that has developed a very successful business model on top of that. We can give that away. We can give those services away. If you want to run a Minecraft server, if you want to run a game server, if you want to run a web streaming application, you can do it all in Flux for free. We can give that away because the individuals who are hosting the infrastructure at large are being incentivized by mining and running nodes on Flux. So we're paying for the service with Flux, and essentially they're giving it back to the community. So it's this perpetual foundation, this perpetual growth model. So we don't need to necessarily come out and tell anybody, hey, we're going to give $2 million or $8 million or $5 million, whatever the number is, to growth. We're giving you everything for free, essentially. You know, and people kind of scratch their head and they say, well, how does that work? And it says, well, Bitcoin gave you financial freedom for free. All you had to do is go get some Bitcoin. Flux is going to give you that next iteration. It's going to give your personal data to you and your ability to have a, uncensorable platform. And Flux is the grease that makes it go. So it's the utility asset that stands behind it. So
how do you see that? How do you see that evolving? Like, I mean, sustainability of the tokenomics and all of that. Like, if you're giving Flux away to the node operators and then play this out 10, 20 years from now, is that still being distributed at the same amount? Like, is there another kind of, it comes into the ecosystem? Is it used for applications? How do you see that all playing out?
So the way that you have to look at it is this way, is you have really the way it is now is it's 50-50. So 50% of the block reward goes to the miners, 50% goes to the node operators. And then there's 3 tiers on top of that. Each tier has a different level of incentivization. So your base entry point is always going to be your Flux because you're providing the computational resources to the network at that base level. But what people are finding out as projects build on top of that base level, they're incentivizing with their own asset. So KDA wanted a mass deployment. They came in and started a node reward program. If you were running their data on your node, you were not only incentivized in Flux, but you were incentivized in KDA. You can expand that out. We do Firo, we do Presearch, we do Kasama, we do Polkadot, that's just the fintech DeFi world, but think about this. If I build a dApp and I want it at mass deployment, I want that Facebook or that Twitter that's going to run on the entire infrastructure, want it to be completely saturated, have lots of redundancy, lots of scale, then I'm going to incentivize the individuals who are providing that infrastructure. So those running a node, or as I call them, our decentralized systems administrators, those decentralized systems administrators start to create business models around deploying their nodes. And the nice thing about the structure, the tokenomics we put in place, is we can scale infinitely and we can scale quickly. And as a matter of fact, we're getting ready to go through our first node halvening, and we'll move from about 2,800 nodes to 10,000 plus nodes within a few months, I believe. And that doesn't even take into account what we're doing with our off-chain as well. So you can deploy Raspberry Pi, a Jetson, NVIDIA Jetson for edge compute and AI learning, and be incentivized by the individuals that are buying those resources. So that's a big deal. So very sustainable in the end. That's cool. It was a long answer.
No, that's great. That's great. And how do you see? I guess it's also another interesting topic, interoperability. And if we were sitting here a year ago versus today, it seems to me like an entirely different discussion around interoperability.
Oh,
yeah. Like amazing to see some of these networks like Solana and BNB chain now it's called BNB chain instead of BSC. Cadena is another interesting one. Like you see all of these spring up and they're having a lot of success.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you see all of that interoperability playing forward? I know you're already working with multiple chains.
Yeah.
But how do you see that evolving?
Well, the holy grail of blockchain is interchain operability. It's the ability for us to step out of our tribalistic environments and start to participate in multiple chains. So, I argue with a lot of people when they talk about, one particular project is doing X. I'm like, no, the space is doing it. And eventually it's going to be irrelevant because they're all going to be working together. Flux saw this quite a while ago, and we launched our parallel assets. And, we are currently on 5 other chains other than Flux. You can leave the Flux main chain and you can go to Binance Smart Chain. You can go to KDA. You can go to Solana. You can go to Ethereum, and you can go to Tron right now. And then we're getting ready to roll out Luna and Terra as well. So why is that important? Well, before I was siloed to my ecosystem, right? If it wasn't done in my ecosystem, like liquidity providing or DeFi or whatever it was, if it wasn't deployed on my network, I couldn't use it. Parallel assets allow you to move to another chain. So I can mint Flux to another chain. Let's say it's Binance Smart Chain, and I provide liquidity to, PancakeSwap or something of that nature. Or say I want to go to KDA because KDA is getting ready to launch Cadix, which is the first decentralized exchange, which Flux, by the way, is going to run their back end. They're back in their front end, which makes Cadix the very first truly decentralized exchange that's ever existed by birth, and that's a big deal. And allowing you to move from one platform to another platform, that is the key. And we are there. So we used to be able to dream about what interchain operability looks like, but now we can facilitate that.
Do you see that evolving into the actual projects as they're being birthed, I guess, as you mentioned? Like I'm just thinking, there's a time where if you're going to build something, you have to pick which blockchain you're building on. Are you seeing projects that are like, we'll use multiple from the ground up?
Absolutely. And you're seeing a lot of these projects that are in the know launching their incubation and acceleration models, like what Flux has done. KDA just launched an incubation model. A couple of the projects that run through Flux Labs will do funding models on, the Cadena chain. So they'll use KDL, which is their launch pad, to be able to fund the project. And in that, if they need a layer 1 and they need to scale, layer 1, then they're going to use KDA, or they may use Solana. And, we're going to have integrations with Solana as well. So the inside folks know. So if you took all of the major players from all of the blockchains that are out there, let's say the top 150 of them, and you put them in a room, sans these horseshit meme coins, which I don't know if I can cuss, but I say horseshit. So, you remove them out and you just look at the true legitimate projects. Flux's goal is to take even proof of stake based projects, which, by the way, I believe proof of stake is highly centralized. However, if they start to deploy infrastructure on a decentralized model like Flux, you're all of a sudden giving the ability for these proof of stake models to even look more decentralized. So I think in the end, if you put all those people in one room, we're all working on a path to the same thing. And that is to be able to traverse these different chains, utilize, if storage is got massive storage on their side and I need storage on my side, why do I rebuild what they've already rebuilt? I'm going to take storage and I'm going to drop it into Flux. Hint. There's the ability to do these things and capitalize on what other people are doing, and they're doing them well. So yeah, I think you're definitely going to see that. You've seen it with us in Cadena. You've seen it with us with Solana, and us other projects like Presearch and all these other projects that they're already ahead of the curve. They know what's happening.
Running like a bunch of proof of stake nodes on top of Flux is like the ultimate yield farm.
It is. It is.
It's like,
and you got a great idea.
Up like 50 different nodes on top of that. It's like it's just like the ultimate yield farm, and build a product out of that.
Yeah, and I'm no fan. I'm a proof of work guy. I truly believe proof of work is exactly what it is. You have to put the work in to do it. But I will say this: some of the things like what Solana and others are doing with proof of stake, if they give commitment to pushing themselves in a more, and I'm not just talking crypto projects. Let's take it a step further. If Coinbase truly decided that they wanted to have decentralized backend, they could do it on Flux today. So Coinbase, if you're listening, Brian, we're here. Give us a call.
Stop going down after your Super Bowl ads. And
start. If they would have launched on Flux, they would have stayed up the whole time, guys. It was like, it's here nor there. Maybe that's a wish.
Brian, he's a long time listener. He was like at one time our only listener, so he's definitely out there listening to this, right? So.
Awesome.
No, but it's true though. It's true, and but at the same time, it's like, hey, like there was like if you're taking the work was done somewhere previously, and then you're turning it into proof of stake by saying, hey, I'm going to hold this here for a certain amount of time and lock this. And you're right, if it's more sensor resistant, where it's like, hey, and it's more decentralized, and you have a bunch of nodes on top of something that's more decentralized. It's kind of like what, I don't know how familiar you are with like stacks, but like what they're doing with Bitcoin, which it's like Bitcoin is securing the network through that proof of work. It's kind of like a layer into that of, you're saying, hey, we're now like, if you launch on top of Flux, you've got a bunch of proof of stake that's out there, but the work was done somewhere previously. That capital and that value had to be moved into this.
Yes.
And so it's like a selective proof of work that's like, I mean, I'm not on the same page of like, I think it's the energy is worth it for Bitcoin. No questions asked.
What if we took it a step further than that? What if we all agreed conceptually that one of the biggest challenges for proof of work was the fact that it's network security and transaction validation, right? So when Satoshi was sitting and writing the white paper, he acknowledged this, and it's in his forum post. If you go back and you want to search for it, you can find it. He acknowledged the impact it would have on mining, large farms, scaling out. And he was concerned about that because, the optics is that it's just validating the network. But what if you could take that a step further? And if you could use that computational resources, not only to validate and secure your network, but to also do proof of useful work, which means taking that hash power that's currently participating in your ecosystem and moving that to a rendering job. So it takes a lot of computational resources to create a deep fake, a really good deep fake. I don't know if you guys have seen some of these, but some of these deep fakes are super terrifying. But you know what takes even more computational resources? The ability to detect whether or not it's a deep fake. And you have to do it at a much more rapid pace, because as these deep fakes continue to kind of scale out, you're going to have the back end that's going to have to prove that they are deep fakes beyond the shadow of a doubt. Or schools that are standing up infrastructure internally because they want to use the Jetsons for AI learning. Or let's hypothetically say rendering. So you have, maybe, somebody wants to render or fold proteins. Well, that's what we're working on with proof of useful work. We're addressing that issue. So eventually, a test net has just been deployed. We're getting ready to start ramping up the work on it. But you'll be able to participate in our network by mining. And those cards will not only be validating and securing the network, validating transactions and securing the network, but they will also be able to be deployed in the marketplace to allow people to use that computational resources. So that's one of the big things we're working on. Probably the most exciting thing that we have going right now. I mean, I'm super pumped to see it come to fruition.
On that note with AI, like it's a whole nother discussion, probably another hour, but like, the ethical elements of AI and you could go on AWS and see one engine after another that has specialized cognition, and they're very, very expensive to use at scale. Yes. I mean, it's ridiculous. And they don't scale very well. And some of them are very specialized at, logo recognition or, recognize ears or something in a photo, or like all these different things, or finding bad guys, or police are using that kind of stuff. How do you see AI playing with Flux and some of the capabilities there?
Well, I think a big reason why we partnered, we were accepted to the NVIDIA Inception program is because we have our focus on the Jetson-based deployment model. I mean, if you really start to dig into what NVIDIA is doing with their Jetsons, is they really want to create an AI platform for people to develop technologies and software programs that will be able to be deployed at scale. It's not freaking so expensive anymore to be able to deploy that, because that hardware has already been deployed and already resides running out there in the Flux ecosystem. So, from an ethical standpoint, AI terrifies the hell out of me, but that's old man Dan speaking. You know what I mean? I realize there's a ton of value in AI and what AI will become. And we'll help facilitate that. I don't know what that looks like yet. I think that it is the future. We know it's the future. It's just another uncomfortable conversation that people are going to really have to sit down and talk about, because it isn't something we're looking 10 years down the road and saying, hey, 10 years down the road, we really need to look at AI. What's the governance model for AI, and how what's the ethical process we're going to use? That happens today, like literally right now. Elon Musk will tell you that it's already too late to have that discussion. I don't agree with that. I think the discussion needs to happen today on how that looks. And the easiest way to do it is to take all the players in the space and figure out some ethical guide to how these things are deployed. So I think it's going to be huge.
It's interesting to hear, like you could say, Elon's concerned, but They also have the largest data set of driving out there, period, in the entire world, and they own it. And they own it. They own it associated with your owner's account. They own it. They know where it is, where you're driving. They know everything about you.
Yeah, the terrifying.
It's crazy.
The terrifying part is 15 minutes after he said he was scared about AI, he talked about Neuralink, which is basically,
killing animals.
Assimilating to the Borg, you know what I mean? Like it's like it doesn't make sense to me, but the conversations, it's not too late to be had. It has to start now though.
Well, it's like some of this stuff just grows so quickly, and it's like, you could see you could point to something with like, well, hey, Elon wants to open source like all their like a lot of IP, right? And have all these other car companies understand how to use like the batteries and like rebuild some of that stuff. So it's like you can tell that like the initiative is there, but it's almost like once something becomes so big, like something like Tesla, there's investors, there's board, there's all of these things. It's a public company, all eyes on that. It's like, well, where does the value come? If you just open sourced everything, then what happens with like all these other people won't let that stuff happen. And it's like this stuff just goes so quickly. So it's kind of like what you're saying with like, you have all these things have to be birthed with this mentality.
Yeah.
Right. Or like, you really have to cut things and move things over to adjust to this new model. Right. Like it's kind of like we kind of went through that. Like we were going down this like traditional SaaS model, like we're going to collect data. And we just went like a complete right turn and said, this is not the way the world's going to work anymore. Yep. We're going to go down this other path. And that was a tough decision to make. It's like, hey, this is now the rest of your life to say like, hey, you're going to build this new entity, like community protocol that's going to operate a different way. And it's not like you can just make a decision tomorrow. Hey, we're just going to throw a bunch of ads on the site. Hey, we're just going to go do this thing, because that's like you're saying, like, don't be evil again. You're going down that path, but it's very difficult, I feel like, for companies that are down those paths to make that decision because the amount of stakeholders that are out there.
Well, I mean, and it's a conversation, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have. You have stakeholders that are involved in your business but at some point they have to have that conversation. They have to say, this threatens our business model. So it's more the fact that we have to have these conversations, that they're real, what Web3 is going to disrupt, what AI is going to disrupt, what edge compute is going to disrupt, what, projects like Helium and 5G networks are going to disrupt. These are conversations that need to be had, and people need to be open and willing to. You can resist them all you want. I mean, you see it in, the government right now with crypto. Everybody wants to regulate it. They can't figure out how to use it. What the hell is proof of work versus proof of stake? I don't understand any of this. This is scary to me, right? Mm-hmm. So if it's scary to me, then I hurry up and I want to block that. So instead of taking the time, and we, all of us, need to be evangelists of the technology. So we need to make it less scary for people to have those open conversations, because we are the early adopters. We're the folks that knew it before anyone else. If you're listening to this, if you're part of your community or our community, you already know that the things are going to change. It's already the writings on the wall. So it's our job to be good stewards and make sure that we relay that information to anyone we can at any point in time.
So I'm certain some of these people listening right now are developers, and I'm sure they're probably hearing you and they're getting really excited and asking themselves, what do I do? Where do I get started? And if they were to build on Flux, what would their experience be like?
Well, again, it's iterative technology. I would say we've got 5,000 plus applications. We've got a decentralized pricing oracle. We've got, websites. If you go to runonflux.io, that website is hosted completely on Flux with the Flux domain manager. So everything is on Flux. So that's pretty amazing. I would say this. I would say if you're willing to put the effort in and help to refine the process, because I'll sit here and tell you, you can deploy, absolutely can deploy. Is it super easy and intuitive and walk through? No. Because we're in the process of building that model out. We have the early adopters that are in there, the developers. If you're a dev and you want free space, and we'll give it to you and we'll support you, you can have access to the greatest devs out there right now that are building in Web3 platform. Come find us. Runonflux.io. You can apply. We're hiring people. We've got positions for devs right now to help refine those pieces and make it a very seamless experience. our goal internally is within the next quarter to have it as simplistic as deploying on AWS right from Flux. And we're about 85% there.
That's pretty good. 85 is pretty high.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, we're pretty happy with it. So, I mean, people will have to ask questions. They have to go through the process, but you know, it's we encourage everyone to come check the project out.
What do you think are some of the most important applications that need to be built on Flux right now?
Social media. 100%, hands down. Social media, electronic medical records, supply chain management, you name it. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Is there a blogging app yet? Like any sort of just like Substack type app
we actually deployed a blogging app. We had a 30 on 30 where we launched 30 dApps in 30 days. And there's a blogging app. You can go into our marketplace and you can deploy your own on Flux, by the way. You can deploy your own blog directly on Flux. It's uncensorable. In other words, you can put what you want there and, you know, it's your blog. So we're not going there's no way we can turn it off or shut it down or anything like that. It's yours.
Cool.
Well,
I feel like that's where it starts, is just like kind of long form writing. And then it's like someone comes and builds some sort of like real-time DApp. And then it's like we add, you know, hashtags, you add photos, you add videos, like you add those components over time. But it's like it starts with just like writing, right? It goes back to kind of like the whole thing with Rogan. It's like if we're living in the metaverse, like, you know, killing your digital identity is almost as important, like almost as impactful as like killing the person, in a way where it's like, you know, if you can't speak and you're not out there, who can hear? No one can hear you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the metaverse is mildly overhyped until they start looking at deploying on decentralized infrastructure, and then we can start talking. Because exactly what you said, if you kill somebody's identity physically, deplatform them today, it's unbelievably detrimental. But if you've done the same thing in a digital world, it's just as detrimental. So, you know, I think you're going to see, you know, the metaverse in a different form than what it's been talked about. I think it's going to be, once people get serious and start wanting to really truly deploy on a decentralized backbone, then I think you'll start to see it really, you know, kind of grow.
And a lot of the avatars in the metaverse, they need to have legs, because what I keep seeing is it's like waist
legs.
up,
yeah, what
and
is
they're bouncing around.
They got an issue with legs. I don't know why that is, though.
I don't understand it either. I don't know.
Come deploy on Flux. 100% will give you legs.
I love that. I want to see that on a billboard. I love that. That's great.
Deploy Flux, we'll give you legs.
Yeah. So a question just about health. I mean, crypto space is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's 24/7, 365, every time zone. You probably get meeting requests at 2 a.m. You know, what are some tactics that you use to stay sane and keep healthy?
Well, you have to pace yourself and you have to pick your commitments. I mean, good work-life balance is always the key. I have my passions that I follow and I make sure that I put them before anything else. You are no good to anyone if you are fractured or if you're, you know, wore out or tired. And let me tell you something, blockchain crypto can tire you out very quickly because it does run at a rapid pace. The other thing is, find the individuals around you you want to surround yourself with. I was very blessed. I have two co-founders, Parker and Tadeusz, that are my best friends. We trust each other implicitly. Trust is a very, very finite resource in crypto. So look around at the individuals that you're hanging out with and make sure that they bring value add to you as a person. If they bring value add to you as a person, if they're happy for you when you're happy and they're sad for you when you're sad, then they're the ones you want to invest your time and resources into. So like you guys hit it right on the money. You guys have been working together for a very long time. You complement each other. And I went through and looked at a couple podcasts the other night. You complement each other really well.
Thanks,
so
man.
You find those people that are your soulmates, your crypto soulmates, and put value into them, rely on their ideas and their input, listen to what they have to say, because you can't be every single place in the crypto world, the crypto sphere. You have to take input from trusted people and trust those people that are value adds to you. So that's what I would say.
What a great answer. I like that. And I like how
Thanks.
you brought it right back to trust. That was great.
Yep.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, I would say like with a lot of the younger folks that coaching right now, it's always like they're trying to figure out where to go next, or like how to start this thing that they're trying to build. And it's always like, who is the missing person, right? Like everyone's always trying to come up with like an idea. It's like, oh, which idea is going to fit the market right now? Or which idea? It's like, well, even if you want to go build that right now, it's like, do you have like, even if it's 2 to 3 people that can build it together, and what is the missing piece? And a lot of times it's the CTO in the equation,
Yeah.
right? It's like, you've got a kind of maybe more business or product oriented person, and they're all super excited and they're going to build this thing, and they see that's where the hole is in the market. It's like, well, who's going to build it? Right. And like,
build it, support it, maintain it. You
right.
name it.
And like they'll always come and be like, well, we came up with it. So like, that person's going to get like 10% and we're going to split the other like 45. It's like, do you think that person's going to be working at 3 a.m, like when things go down, when you're kind of running out of capital, and you're going to give them 10%? Like, no, they're like, who cares if they didn't come up with the idea? They need to be an owner too.
Yeah.
But it comes down to like that core group of people that are going to like live and breathe something. And it's like, I feel like that's always the missing piece with this, is like, and crypto does it so well, where it's just like kind of what we do with this live stream and everything else. We're just giving, like we're just give. And it's like the community holds you up when it comes time.
Yep. Yeah. The other thing I would recommend too is, and to the young folks that are out there that are looking to get into a project, don't be distracted by the bright and shiny. Pick a project that you believe in and focus on that. Every single person that is on the Flux project has agreed verbally, to the community, that is their sole project they work on. They don't work on 4 or 5 other things, or they're not out mining shit coins, or they're not doing this. I work on one project, and that is Flux. And that's all I will ever work on. And why do I do that? Because I believe in what I'm doing. If you want to work, or if you want to try to be in multiple places at multiple times, you're going to miss the opportunity. And we only get a few opportunities in life. I got one with Bitcoin. I got another one with Flux.
Nice.
And I capitalized on both of them. So if you're being distracted looking at other things, other bright and shiny meme coins or whatever it is that's coming up, and you think, oh, this could be the next Bitcoin. It's not. It's not. Don't buy it. You know what I mean?
Really
Don't focus
not.
on it. Yeah, it's
really
not. All
Yeah.
they're doing is creating, an asset to take your Bitcoin, to take your Flux, to take your valuable assets, because that's exactly what they're going to do. If I can produce an exorbitant amount of tokens and you pay me a premium because I have a market maker that's running that price up, and I'm taking your Bitcoin, it makes them rich and makes you poor in the end. So, I would just say to anyone that's listening to this and they're thinking about getting into a career in crypto, find your project and stick to it, build it, make something. And if you do that, you won't miss your opportunity, because even if it's another project that comes along that you seek potential in, focusing on your project that's developing will naturally have them gravitate in towards you. And you'll know them before they ever get there. We knew KDA well before KDA was, went parabolic and is number 1 on LunarCrush right now.
They're an interesting one to point out, by the way, because, there was a moment probably 6 months ago, and, we track both social and market activity combined, and we call it alt rank. And all of a sudden we're like, what is this? I'd never even heard of it. And it just kept popping and popping and popping. And it was like day after day, different times. And it's interesting. Started looking into it, and you start to look at, wow, it's not like the number of social posts is going up from more people, and those posts are getting increasingly more engagement. And wouldn't you know, price just absolutely mooned.
Yep.
And like, I think that's a good example of exactly what you're saying, and seeing it like tangibly and objectively, to say, you know what, as they do what you're saying, which is build and focus, that happens.
Yep.
And it's just an interesting thing. And, once you get all those people involved, a lot of those people may have started as investors, and then they start building themselves.
Yeah.
And so I find it really interesting.
I always say that money and or whatever incentivizes you, like if it's fiat or if it's whatever, is the byproduct of your success. It isn't, if you go into whatever you're doing and your focus is getting rich. You stop what you're doing.
Yeah,
Reevaluate that. It should be about the mission. And if you get your mission correct and you get your head straight, the money, the success of the project is the byproduct, the natural byproduct of that organic growth. So that's, you hit it right on the money there.
You're loaded with great advice today. I love it.
Yeah, the community likes. I should have a podcast called the Old Man Dan Hour, where I just sit around and rant about things that like Peter Griffin grinds my gears. You know what grinds my gears?
Yeah, it really grinds my gears. I've been watching that lately. Going back and looking at some of those clips of that show is unbelievable.
Amazing. Well, let's hope they don't deplatform Family Guy, because boy, let me tell you something. If you want content, that's where you find it.
I mean, we didn't even talk about video content of like YouTube content, like launching, like you said, it's another piece of social media, but like maybe that would be like a great news story though. Also, it's like Flux puts the entire Family Guy, like, on top.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, you know what we did do? My favorite person in the entire world, Dr. Craig Wright, he actually sued to have the Bitcoin white paper taken off of the Bitcoin website. So I think it's .org. I don't know which one.
Yeah.
It was one of them, and he won. And they had to remove it from the website. So what did we do? We put the Bitcoin white paper on Flux and deployed it on every node across the entire network, and it can never be taken down. So hey, Craig, if you want to send a subpoena somewhere, I don't know where to tell you to send it, because it's a decentralized network. Good luck with that.
Why was it taken down off that specific website?
Because, well, he's the guy. I wish I could curse, but the guy is he really truly believes that he created.
Oh no, I know that, but I'm wondering how did they get it off that specific? Did he own that specific website?
They sued the website as copyright infringement. Yeah. So because he's claiming, and they didn't have the resources to fight it, so that was just easier for them to take it down.
Gotcha.
For us, we don't care because it's deployed everywhere. Where do you send it? Do you send it to all 2,800 node operators? Good luck finding them. It's like that. That's the perfect example of when people want to censor something or they want to go after something, and they use their pure influence and or financial resources to bully you out of the project, because the guy's got money. He's going to roll this up. Your business is going to be destroyed. There's no way that they can hit. It's easier just to take it down.
Right.
I have a question around, like, I don't know how possible it would be, but here we are. We talked about Canada earlier. No one really got to me. That was just, I don't know. It hit me hard.
Yep. Such
a great example of like, especially when you see the president of El Salvador comment on it. And I just think of, like, you'd grow up thinking El Salvador, ooh, that's a scary place. And now you think of El Salvador as this Bitcoin paradise.
Yeah.
And Canada's censoring its people. But how possible would it be to build an entire bank in a decentralized manner? Or is it just too crazy?
No,
because
I don't
the
think
government's
so.
Involved. Like,
we talked about Flux today, but Zelcore is an entirely different animal. I mean, Zelcore was built to be exactly that. And as a matter of fact, your decentralized bank was one of our early kind of little mottos that we used. We basically aggregate all the major exchanges. It's a decentralized. It runs on a decentralized network, so Flux runs the backbone of it. We store no data. We cultivate no data. Our decentralized two-factor authentication is not through a third party. So yeah, in the end, there are products like Zelcore that have already identified the opportunity, not here in the developed world, because we've been blessed. We grew up with a bank that we knew that we could go get money out of, somewhere in Africa where a warlord's coming in and just takes a haircut of whatever you got. So we are looking at a bigger deployment than that. And banking the unbanked is a goal that, 100% is the goal. But to bank the unbanked, you need a decentralized, uncensorable backbone. And that's why Flux was born.
Right. And that's why you're saying, like, with DEXs today, it's like, you can pick on a couple, but it's like, which part of that infrastructure is actually truly decentralized? Right?
AWS went down, and Uniswap went down.
Right.
Pancake swap went down. You're not a DEX, bro. You're not a DEX.
Right. That's my point. is saying that like how it's decentralized from certain standpoints.
Yes.
But still that's like literally how we started this, like decentralized versus uncensorable are kind of two separate things in a way. But like you said, full decentralization should mean fully like uncensorable.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Canada. I think Canada's one that's has woke us all up a little bit, because I set up and listened to that and I was like, whoa, this is a watershed moment. This is the very first government that has come out and said, we are going to go after you, and we're going to go after your bank account. We're going to go after your, if you work and you have a license through the country, we're going to take your license. We're going to attack cryptocurrencies. These guys were very targeted with what they announced, and we're sitting there. I'm like watching this. I'm like, this is it. This is the pivotal moment that we've all been waiting for, because they're going to fail miserably. I guarantee that they're going to fail miserably. You cannot, all you're going to do is push people to other platforms. You look at Venezuela, you look at Greece, you look at Argentina, you look at all these that have had some type of civil unrest, and Bitcoin became a fundamental underpinning for these people to have a livelihood. And now you're going to take it to a higher level where your first world is going to attempt to do something like this, and they're going to fail, and it's going to be a mess. So, yeah, I'm watching to see how this all plays out. From what it sounds like, those truckers are going nowhere, and we're going to be watching, maybe the moment that I've talked about for many, many years unfolding right in front of us.
Yeah, it takes such a large democratic entity to have such an issue. If you think about it, yeah, you're right. It is a huge moment, and it's, to me, the thing that still got me the most was that they said you basically have no rights. You have no recourse.
That's
right. You
right.
have no legal ramifications. Yep. It's just like you're sitting there. You're like, okay, my accounts are shut down now. I guess I've lost my money. Nothing you can do. And who is this banker that decided it?
Yep.
Like just some dude that says, yep, they were bad, so I'm going to shut their accounts down. Because
you have a differing opinion of what predominantly is in the ruling part of the government now, they can attack you. So, it's terrifying to me. And, I would say to everybody out there watching it, pay very close attention to it, because, you have to be very vocal. You have to be very engaged, because if you're quiet and you let things happen around you, they will happen and you won't have any input. It'll be decided for you.
It's interesting because if Canada and other countries are in the wrong by censoring their people, and if El Salvador is right, does this make El Salvador the richest nation in the world?
It makes them probably one of the wisest nations in the world. And I would say that even the States and even Russia to a certain extent, and some of these large major superpowers, they know they're not going to be able to curtail this. They're going to do their best to demonize it so that people sell cheap and that they buy. But I think we're going to eventually be in a world where Bitcoin is just going to be a staple like gold. I mean, it's just going to be in your IRA. It's going to be in your 401k. It's going to be, you name it, it's going to be there. But how they get there and the liberties that they trample on getting there is going to be what's the interesting part of it. So, it's an uncomfortable conversation. We have to have it now.
Is it? I mean, we're talking about just like absolute, like monumental paradigm shift type stuff, but yet, you could go like around the corner and grab coffee and you can talk to someone. They're like, I still don't understand what it is. I don't understand what Bitcoin is. Like, I feel like there's such a disconnect like right now. And I don't know if it was like, maybe I'm like just a little young where I missed some of the internet, where it was like, there was that happening at the beginning where people like truly just did not understand what was happening to them. And like, they didn't get it. And now they just like use Instagram like it's nothing. And like, that's where we're going to be 20 years from now. But I feel like it's just, there's so much change happening right underneath people's feet. And like the average everyday consumer is out there just still going like, I don't know if I get it.
Yeah. And I think that's partly, there's two parts to that. One is I think there's adoption by necessity, which is, I think, where we're headed. And there's also adoption by scale. It just becomes more it becomes easier. Like if you guys, I don't know how long you've been in crypto, but if you think go back in the way back time machine to when you had to have a Bitcoin wallet, it was terrifying. I sat there nervous every time I would go to hit send, check the address, text, is this the right address? Am I sending it to the right place? Hit send. Oh my God, now I wait. I'm waiting. Is that block? Where's that block at? It doesn't show up. It's not in the wallet. Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Well, that anxiety is what a lot of people have with fintech in general. They understand it's a thing, right? It's the same way me trying to explain to somebody 10 years ago what the cloud was. It's real. It exists. You can touch it. You can feel it. It's a real thing. Bitcoin is the same way. Cryptocurrencies are the same way. They're real. They're tangible. They're there. Just because you can't hold them in your hand doesn't mean that they exist. If you buy a gold certificate, you get a certificate that someone has the gold somewhere. It just needs it. We need to get into the position where I do believe there will be adoption by necessity. You're going to see, the Venezuelas of the world and places like that where, I just read something the other day about the women in Iraq are using Bitcoin now as basically to live off of, because the government has just arbitrarily just went into their any type of account that they have and just gone.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying. And that's adoption by necessity. But what happens is, as you have that adoption by necessity, the ones who didn't necessarily need it, who had a well-developed, banking sector or whatever, will just naturally gravitate toward that because it's going to force change. So then the necessity is on that side of the fence as well.
Yep. No, it's always funny when people will message me like, I sent this and like, it didn't get there. I was like, what was the address, right? They're like, yeah. Well, I'm like, well, it's there. You just can't find it. Like maybe you didn't put your address in right, or you didn't add the right chain or something like that. And they're like, well, how do you know? I'm like, well, the fact that we're having this phone call means that the power is on.
Yeah. I always tell everybody, like when they're panicking, I'm like, look, did you use your positive use the right address? Yes. Okay. Can you see it on the Block Explorer? Yes, I can see it on the Block Explorer. Can you see it in your wallet on the Block Explorer? Yes. Okay. Then calm the hell down. You're going to get it. It's fine. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
US. Set them up with an Electron wallet.
Yeah.
Dan, well, dude, this was awesome. I know we're about 20 minutes over, so we do got to wrap up here. But man, this was super fun. I feel like you should start your podcast, and I think we'd love to be a guest on there whenever you do that.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love that too. You guys are doing a killer job, and I just want to mention that at the end. When we have our meetings as a team, one of our metrics that we use is exactly what you guys are providing us, and it's been an unbelievably successful metric for how we're engaging socially. It helps to really build our marketing and PR team together. I highly recommend to anyone who has a crypto project and they really want good quantitative analytical data about social aggregation to really work with you guys, because I'm telling you, there is nothing more valuable than to hear what the masses are saying about you. We always say Flux was built for the people, by the people, but we want to hear what the people are saying. You know what I mean? They have a lot of good input, and we do that with your platform. So I'm actually doing a commercial for you, but that's all right.
We got to cut just that part out, right?
Yeah, that's it.
That's post it. We're actually going to be building more tools too for projects such as yourself to go even further with the data and have even greater insights and a lot of things coming ahead. So we'll talk to you more about that.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, guys. And I really appreciate it. Check us out, runonflux.io. Join our Discord. We have a great community there. You guys, thanks again for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Daniel Keller, Chief Strategy Officer at Flux. Thanks so much.
See you guys. Thank you.
Alrighty.